episode. We are Geeks Not Nerds. I'm Captain Logan.
I'm Vince. And I'm Tim Lyons.
And welcome to the special Calling Tim Lyons Out edition of We Are Geeks Not Nerds. Today...
Tim, come on.
Today we're going to be talking about comic books, because we've never done that before. And we're going to be talking about folks that don't like to read comics and why. And so we have Tim Lyons on the program.
And we're also trying to tower over the top of Captain.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, this is different. This feels weird. Like,
yeah, really, this is so you feel threatened.
I do kind of feel threatened. Yeah, a little bit. I'm intimidated right now.
Really? We should get Cap's soapbox out so he can feel.
Yeah, that would be helpful.
Give him a couple phone books to stand on.
Okay, so anyway, so I was joking when I said we're calling you out,
yeah.
but Tim Lyons kind of helped us come up with this topic, and it's something I've actually kind of been wanting to do for a while. Is to talk about. We've talked a lot about getting people into comic books, but what we want to kind of focus on today, we might talk about that a little bit, but what we want to focus on right now is why certain people aren't into comics already, like why they've never cracked one open, because it's an entire medium. And I would say that Tim, besides comic books, there's probably like no other entire medium that you've never at least attempted, right?
Right.
I mean, you read your first comic book like a month ago.
Well, I mean, that wasn't the first comic book I read.
Oh, okay.
There were admittedly one or two that I had growing up, but like one or two issues, not one or two actual series.
Oh, I see. Okay. Excuse me, I didn't know that.
I kind of liked them, but they didn't excite me that much. I guess
enough to get into the medium and keep going.
Typically when I actually sit down and read something, I'll read something that's non-fiction. Generally, I don't read novels that much either.
Oh, well, that's interesting.
Yeah, and it's...
I have the same for you.
It's because, I'll read, like I read the autobiography of Johnny Cash, I'll go through, I like reading magazines, Popular Science and that sort of thing. But I just don't read a lot of fiction, although I have read more fictional novelizations than I've read comic books.
So, you're a film guy, yes?
Yeah.
And you enjoy fictional film.
Sure.
So, where do you find the leap between non-fiction prose and fictional media?
The internet ruined me there. Yeah, because you think about it this way: when you're on the internet, you're reading a lot of stuff on the internet, Wikipedia or wherever you happen to go. It's going to be news and a lot of nonfiction stuff, unless you're a right-wing conservative who believes that everything on the internet is bleeding heart liberal media.
Well, isn't it?
Yes. The internet, brought to you by Obama. Anyway,
Tim, we usually try to keep the politics to a minimum on our show.
We're 2 for 2 today.
Yeah, seriously. Free Comic Day has not been the best day for us in politics.
Well, anyway.
At least last time it was your fault.
Yeah. In any case, so I'm on the internet a lot. And so I read a lot of...
The opinions expressed in this edition of Geeks Not Nerds are not necessarily the opinions of Captain Logan and Vince. Go ahead.
So I'm on the internet a lot. And so aside from the porno, no, I'm just kidding. No, I'm not. Anyway, aside from that...
Just going souther and souther.
It's a lot of nonfiction material. There's very little fictional material that I read on the internet. Sure, I'll watch people's short films and stuff like that because, the internet is definitely a hot medium. You got the actual video and the audio, and you can have all of that together into a rich multimedia and interactive experience if you'd like. I got so used to that then, I don't know, it's like taking a step back and reading a comic or even reading a fictional novel is not as appealing to me. But I can watch a film just fine, and I can play a video game just fine.
What's really interesting about that to me is that comics are almost closer to film than they are to reading a novel.
Yeah. Well, I would say that for a while I've called there's 3 kinetic mediums that are about movement of some kind. It's stage, screen, and comics. So one's sequential art, one is very limited to space, and then the other one you can do whatever you want, which is comics, stage, movies. But
we got you. We're following you. Go ahead.
I was out of order, but you were all out of order. This whole court is out of order. But so I forgot where I was going with this. Oh yeah, I'm going to ditch that topic. Anyway, I think it's interesting that you find so much interest in in nonfiction. I mean, because there are some nonfiction comic books. And I'm not talking about the biography of Woozy What's Its Life. I mean, there's one out there called Stagger Lee that's about fictionalized history. It's about legends and which parts of them are actually true, which parts of them are actually made up, and how did it change throughout the years.
Well, and that's something that I hadn't seen. Maybe I'd like that one. Truth be told, it's like a lot of them that I've seen. When I read a comic book, like when I read the Ghostbusters comics, to compare for that thing. When I read through them, I thought that they were good. I thought that they were funny. I thought that they were very well written, very well drawn and inked, what have you. But then I also thought, wow, these would be great storyboards for a film.
Yeah, and that's kind of what comics are in a lot of ways.
Sure, and that's what they are now, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. And we've had some films now that were basically storyboarded based on comic books. And so, basically, where you have to make the leap is to let your brain fill in those gaps.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. Basically, what you have to do is you have to go. You have to make your brain kind of almost think you're watching a film while you're reading a comic book. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's where the imagination comes in.
Yeah, and that, honestly, I could probably do that if I, went through and
it takes some
bounced.
training. I mean, you have to do it a whole lot.
Yeah,
you
exactly.
Read it a lot. Yeah.
But at the same time, if I got to train to enjoy a particular medium, what's the point?
Well, I feel like in some ways, though, you have to train yourself to enjoy any medium, right? I mean,
I think sometimes we're just trained to enjoy it from the get-go.
From the get-go. That's the thing is that we all grew up watching movies.
Sure.
I grew up reading books, and I grew up reading comic books. But not everybody grew up, say, playing video games. And you'll have some people that will grow up and they'll try video games now, and it takes them a while to get interested and excited about it because it's something they haven't done before, and they're not used to the time it takes to get into the game and things like that.
Yeah.
So I don't buy what's the point. I feel like to a degree we have to do this with everything.
Okay, I see that.
Like what about in the 50s when television was new?
Yeah.
And everybody was more used to going to the movie house to see movies and getting other entertainment through reading books or through listening to the radio, and they had to get used to the fact that they had this box that they could sit down and watch.
Well, but
I feel like it's a similar thing.
But by the same token, there's that novelty there that, hey, now there's this box we can put in our living room and watch moving pictures come in. There's that sense of awe.
And for children, comic books were a novelty when they came out.
Sure, yeah.
And now we can add the words to the pictures because, admittingly, for kids, it was like I don't have to do as much work. No, really. And that's part of the problem with comics is making people realize that it can still be an extremely imaginative medium for the reader, and it's not necessarily just lowbrow based on the fact that you do have pictures that accompany it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because the same argument has been made for television and movies, and I feel like that's pretty well debunked because there are things you can do in that medium that you can't do in just straight text.
Yeah. I think I'd like to go back to something you said that I thought was really cool. It was the idea of what's the point, but I think there is some merit to that statement. I think developing a taste for something that you previously don't enjoy, I think if you have to work at it, that maybe it's not for you.
Well, maybe no, and that's fair. Absolutely,
Yeah.
That's fair.
I
Sure.
mean, like, for example, somebody said to me, black eyed peas are good for you. Not the band, but the food. They said black eyed peas are good for you.
I'm sure
Yeah,
the
but they
band is
taste
not
awful.
for you
the same
either.
argument can be made about the band.
It's a taste you have to develop, but they are not good for you. I don't care what they say. Getting retarded is not good. But,
Anyway.
or getting started, as it turns out. But that's the thing is black eyed peas aren't tasty. But people who grew up with them like them. People who grew up with the comics like the comics.
Yeah, sure.
Do you guys have the comics? I like the comics.
And
I like to have some of them.
you could tell this just looking at statistics. The majority, I would say that the vast majority of people who are reading comic books now grew up with comic books. Most people don't just suddenly get into comic books. It happens.
Well,
but-
and you know what I think? That phenomenon, it goes across all mediums. I mean, we are living in the age of nostalgia. Nostalgic
absolutely.
entertainment.
And has been this way for at least a decade or more.
Yeah, and the reason that I believe that is happening is because there's so much stuff out there, and a lot of it sucks, that we stick with what we know. And a lot of times we like to go back and, it's just a natural thing to try and go back and revisit things that you previously very much enjoyed.
Yeah.
See if they hold up and that sort of thing. But, even a lot of the films coming out now, comic book films are doing very well because people of our age are now our age.
And we remember them. For us,
You know what I mean?
It's our classics.
Yeah, exactly.
When I was a kid, I didn't read many comics, actually. come to think of it. I didn't get into comics until I was in high
I
school.
was going to ask you about that because I said most of us that are into comic books were reading it when we were kids, but you were nearly an adult by the time you started.
Yeah,
so that's interesting.
I was at minimum 17.
Was it strange reading the medium for you when you started? Panels, sequential art.
You know, here's the deal. I suppose that the interest was always there. I'd read like, I don't know, maybe 10 comics by the time I was 17, but I just didn't have much. I had just a little stack. And but by the time that I really found a place, I went to a convention where they had this little. Actually, I went to an anime convention where they had a little section of comics, and I said, I really want to try that because it's the only thing American here. So I tried it and loved it. So
He missed the apple pie stand in the corner.
There's probably some hamburgers around there somewhere too. Who knows?
well, as it turns out, most of the patrons of the con were actually American. But,
Yeah.
Fancy that.
it was in.
Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
But I think you need to have sort of an inborn interest for certain things, not necessarily. Like, for example, I liked the idea of superheroes, not necessarily the idea of comics. And I think if you like an idea enough, especially since comics are generally the medium for superheroes, usually, that's going to be your main source of entertainment. So if people say, I want to read about superheroes, they're going to go to that.
Well, but I like superheroes. But when I grew up, I watched Batman the animated series and Spider-Man the animated series and
So
Superman
you're
the
not
animated
unfamiliar
series.
with superheroes.
I'm not unfamiliar with superheroes or even these particular superheroes. The X-Men animated series was also pretty awesome.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
It's more that I experienced those same those same characters in different situations, admittedly, in a different medium. In one that more suited me at that time. That maybe it was the fact that it didn't require as much participation on my part. I could sit back and watch it too. I mean, that might have been part of it when I was a kid, but that's just the way I've always experienced those characters and those types of story arcs. And so that's what I got used to.
And let me reiterate that we have never been about pushing our interests on other people. You know what I mean? I just find it interesting to look at something like this that's an entire medium to find out why more people aren't into it. Let me end on this note. What would it take? Is there? Having said that, is there anything that could get not like 2 feet deep? Just suddenly, I'm reading comic books every day. But I mean,
well, bribery would help.
If I were to hand you something that I were to say is one of the better graphic novels, you don't have to read anything else around it. You have a complete story, and it's something that you don't have to know anything else. What would it take to get you to at least say, yeah, sure, I'll try that?
I'd probably just try it.
Oh, okay.
Based on your recommendation, because I've known you for a long time.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, then I guess that's
It
where
takes
to
a
go.
person you trust.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
you need some sort of motivating factor to actually get into it. And I know you, and we've known each other for a long time, so sure.
But what I find interesting is that you say you.
I don't resist it. I just don't go out and seek it myself.
Right. What I find really interesting is that you like the Ghostbusters in comics. You just seem like you kind of wished it was a different medium. You know what I mean?
Oh,
You're just
yeah,
like,
no.
well, this story in another medium would be great.
This story is great, but I remember the Ghostbusters on film, and I even watched the real Ghostbusters, and I even watched that really bad Filmation version that was based on the show from the 70s.
Yeah.
They had comics of those too.
God, don't even tell me about that.
Here's the thing.
Man.
Let's end off here in a second. I think that what happens sometimes is that comics really can be a limited medium for certain things, especially when they're based on something that was another medium, and that's something to absolutely consider. When I was talking to the guy that writes the Ghostbusters comics, Eric Burnham, one of the things he said in our interview was that there were some points where he got rid of jokes because you needed the voice.
Yeah.
And they just
it's
didn't
a
work
performance-based.
without the original voices. And if you didn't have it in your head at the time, it just didn't come off right. It wasn't funny. Yeah. So it's not it's not a perfect medium, but I think it is a perfect medium for certain things. You know what I mean? Like I think there's certain things that work better in comics than they work in something else.
Well, and if you have no set expectation as far as any kind of performance aspect, then that would help. So.
And the thing that really helps comics too is that it's one of those things where you don't need a budget, so you can show anything you want to on the page. That's one of the things I like about it is that you don't even really good independents can show anything they want to in a comic book.
Sure.
You can have the biggest explosion you want to. You don't have to worry
Because
about budget.
you just need to draw it.
You don't have to worry about budget. Yeah, exactly.
You need to find somebody that can
you get
draw.
everything else.
Yeah, well, that helps too, yeah.
Well, Vince, do you have anything else to add?
Smorgasbord.
Well, thanks a lot for watching Geeks Not Nerds. Leave a comment. Let us know what you think about this particular topic. And
Don't kill me!
we hardly mentioned this, but we're at Vintage Stock once again on Metcalf here in Overland Park, Kansas for Free Comic Day. We've done some other videos, and thanks a lot for watching. I'm Captain Logan.
And I'm Vince.
And I'm Tim Lyons.
Reminding you to support your local comic book store and other retail establishments.
Or in the case of me, come to buy video games.
Superman, Doom's been smashed.
Oh, fun time.